Hello everyone, how are we doing? How are we? Ooh. Right, let's get ready. Let's get ourselves set up. Apologies for running a little bit late myself, but we're there. Let's get into it. How are we all doing in the chat? Antonio in the chat, of course. Jaden, how you doing? Sally there. Lofi there, of course. How are we all? F1 Shorts is a timing screen. I mean, yeah. Delisha, does he actually show the race or is it clickbait? I mean, it's not clickbait because no one on YouTube can show the race. Like, I don't know who you're watching, but if they have, paid the money that Sky has paid for the distributing rights of the Formula One race, maybe like, a Mr. Beast, that kind of level of YouTuber could probably give it a go. But yeah, unfortunately, it's not in my remit right now. Maybe, a few years down the line, a few more subscribers on the channel. We'll see if we can go toe-to-toe with Sky on the British distributing rights of the Formula One Grand Prix. Hello, everyone. How are we doing, though? Vishal, how you doing? Line, hello from Denmark. Sky, what app am I using to watch? Multi-viewer F1. The absolute legends over there. They also have like an IndyCar. They have a NASCAR one. I think they have a WEC one. Like, download Multiviewer if you're into motorsport. It's well worth your time, but I will be using that. Yuki fan, hello. A guy 1013. Remember to be here. Indeed. Flavio in the chat, but with a Ferrari logo, so not that Flavio. Don't you worry. How are you all feeling then? We've got quite a weird start to the Silverstone Grand Prix weekend. Obviously, with qualifying being very mixed conditions. We had wet, we had it drying, we then had a little bit of dry running, but with some rain dabbled throughout it. Also caused chaos. And then we move into the Grand Prix today. And again, it was dry for the Formula 2. Then it was very wet. It's just been a bit of a mix throughout the Grand Prix weekend here in Silverstone. And it's supposed to rain. It's looking fairly dry right now in terms of, obviously, the clouds not looking too grey above the track. But I feel like there's a lot of twists and turns that are coming here this weekend. Raining where you are in Oklahoma City. That's a little bit further away from Silverstone, so I think we'll be all right. Verstappen gets punted by Sainz. Goodness gracious me. Last time I watched you was last year. How's the delay now? Is it different? I mean, it just depends on the race a lot of the times, more than anything else. Depends on the delay of the broadcast that I have in the UK. If you're closer to, I don't know, Singapore, you probably get less of a delay. But I'd hope I get a pretty good delay considering Silverstone is, down the road from me effectively. If you look at the grand scheme of Formula One things. Sergeant points, RB going backwards. Ferrari arrives in the points. Max is cursed whenever he wins 2 rounds. He loses 1 round in this season. Possibly. He's let Max Verstappen win. Let's get into it then. We're getting a few predictions going on in the chat. Shall I pop up the qualifying board and we'll run through the top 20 and see who is starting in and around the point scoring places, who needs to improve, and what drivers will be looking to make moves forwards in this Grand Prix. Let's start at the top of the list. And I mean, well, let's start with the top 3. It is 3 Great British drivers in the podium positions. Imagine the scenes if it ends George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, Lando Norris this weekend in Silverstone. I think the crowd would absolutely lose their mind. 3 British drivers on the top 3 places of the grid starting this weekend. That would just be the absolute pinnacle, wouldn't it? 3 drivers, all their home Grand Prix, all standing on the top step of the podium. The only thing I guess that can make that a little bit better is Alex Albon coming in 4th place as well. Getting him involved in some way Obviously, races under the Thai flag, but grew up in the UK. So, a little bit of a home race for him, considering there is not a Thai Grand Prix throughout the season. George Russell, though, setting the fastest lap in qualifying yesterday. It was mixed conditions. It was kind of perfect for George Russell, wasn't it? He does seem to come to life a little bit when the conditions are a little bit trickier. You know, I think Canada as well. You think that Grand Prix, that pole position time that he was able to put in, the Mercedes kind of coming to its fore, along with all of the times that we saw him, you know, produce ridiculous qualifyings in a Williams car before he moved over to Mercedes. You know, that one where he put it on the podium places for Spa in 2021. Obviously, we didn't actually see a race, but he did pick up a podium for Williams that weekend. So it does feel like, you know, George Russell in those mixed conditions does seem to just have a little bit of something special sometimes, and he's put it on pole. His Lewis Hamilton, his teammate is what I was going to say. His teammate Lewis Hamilton, just behind him in second place. Obviously, Hamilton has been on the podium here more than any other driver. He loves the Silverstone Grand Prix, has won it numerous times, but he does want to add another win to that list. You know, even though Lewis Hamilton's won over 100 races, he still wants to win this Grand Prix. It will mean as much to him, if anything, more than ever, after having a few years away from the top step of the podium. Of course, 2021, the last time we saw Lewis Hamilton win a race. I mean, 2022 was the last time we saw a Mercedes win a race outside of this season. Then, obviously, George Russell picking up the victory in Austria last time out. Are we going to go back-to-back Mercedes victories, considering they hadn't been on the Formula One podium or on the top step of the podium for so long? That would be ridiculous. Although Lando Norris, the man starting in third place, is the one who wants to stop that from happening. Again, it's his home Grand Prix too. Should have probably won the Grand Prix in Austria. I think if we're being fair, that Max Verstappen incident, it looked like the McLaren car was faster. Red Bull threw it away in the pit stops. And Lando Norris was very, very upset not to win that Grand Prix. And also very, very upset not to win in Spain as well. So it does feel like 2 Grand Prix in a row now, we've been looking at Lando Norris to win that Grand Prix, do something special. This time around, surely. 3rd time's the charm for him. 3rd race in a row where he's starting right towards the top end of the grid. But it's that man, Max Verstappen, who is always there, isn't he? Even with damage to his floor yesterday during qualifying, still managed to put that Red Bull in 4th place. And that's the kind of thing, isn't it? When you have Max Verstappen in that Red Bull car, in form, it's just ridiculous, the performance that he can sometimes grab on those race weekends and on those qualifying sessions in those Grand Prix where he just needs that little bit extra. 4th place start, though, for Max Verstappen. We'll see if he can go forwards from that point. We then have Oscar Piastri and Nico Hülkenberg starting on the 3rd row of the grid, which is not a combination I thought I'd be saying coming into this season, but Piastri starting 5th just behind Verstappen will be looking to move forwards as well. 6th place, Nico Hülkenberg. And Nico Hülkenberg, just like take a bow. I don't know what more he can do at this point, Nico Hülkenberg, to prove that he has absolutely been worth that gamble from Haas to bring him back onto the Formula One grid. Remember, this is a driver who sat on the sidelines for 3 seasons, was a replacement driver at best at Aston Martin throughout those years, and he did a really good job. But now is full-time back on the Formula One grid, and this season just seems to be on absolute fire. Nico Hülkenberg got his best point scoring position in Austria last time out for the Haas team, and it looks like he's on for it again. The highest ranked Ferrari-powered car, and it's not often that you see both Ferraris behind a Haas of Nico Hülkenberg. Carlos Sainz then does start just behind Nico Hülkenberg in 7th place, with Lance Stroll in 8th place. That 4th row of the grid. Carlos Sainz obviously has won here in Silverstone. Will be looking to try and go forwards, but the Ferrari just hasn't quite seemed itself in the last few Grand Prix weekends. And Carlos Sainz also with still that cloud over his head of where will he actually end up next season? Will he end up at Williams, at Sauber, at Alpine now joining the chat? And as it narrows down, as soon as we feel like we've got an idea of where Carlos Sainz is finally going to sign, there's a curveball of some kind, something else happens. And that is the nature of Formula One, isn't it? It just keeps progressing, keeps moving, keeps you on your toes. And Carlos Sainz in particular has been very, very scrambled this season. I feel like started the season absolutely incredibly, but Ferrari does need to improve just that little bit for him. Lance Stroll, though, again, similar to George Russell, what I said with Lance Stroll is when it comes to those mixed conditions, when it comes to drying tracks, wet, then soft, then wet, then you're not sure. He does seem to kind of pull it out of the bag, does Lance Stroll, a lot of the time. Very, very good qualifying from him in 8th place. Outperforming where I think the Aston Martin actually is this weekend, to be honest with you. Alex Albon, though, you could say the same thing in the Williams 9th place start for him. Points on the board, possibly, for Williams. They have kind of been left a little bit by the wayside over the course of the last few Grand Prix. Obviously picked up those first points in Canada. No, not Canada, sorry. First points for Alex Albon were in... I can't remember now. Couple of points for Alex Albon so far this season. Gone completely out of my mind. But starts in 9th place, could pick up another couple of points for the Williams team. And I think they'll be looking for that, right? They'll be wanting to make sure that they can just escape Sauber in final position in the Constructors' Championship. Okay, the likelihood is they're going to end up 9th, I think. Williams is going to take a big turn of form for them to catch up to the likes of Haas or RB or even, maybe even Alpine, Aston Martin in that kind of battle. We've then got Fernando Alonso starting in the final point scoring place in 10th. Charles Leclerc drops out of qualifying in Q2, 11th fastest yesterday. Okay, it's only one position that he needs to make up to get into the points. It does feel like off the start line, we'll see Charles Leclerc probably jump either Alonso or Albon, maybe even Stroll, depending on the starting positions of those cars and how they get away after the 5 red lights. Does feel like Charles Leclerc should move up into the top 10 almost instantly. But my goodness me, starting from 11th place, not where he'd want to be this weekend. Logan Sargent even starting next to him is another eye-opener for Charles Leclerc. Logan Sargent has yet to score a point so far this season. Charles Leclerc is supposed to be in the battle for 2nd or even winning the Drivers' Championship. Yuki Tsunoda starts in 13th place with Zhou Guanyu starting 14th. The 2 Asian drivers on the grid starting side by side, 13th and 14th place. Yuki Tsunoda, you'd argue this is a little bit further down than where he usually is or where he has started the season. Whereas Zhou Guanyu, the complete opposite, a real jump up for the Sauber Stake team, really looking a lot better this weekend in terms of their qualifying pace. And at least we're able to get one of their cars out of Q1, which has been a real bugbear for the team this year. They've been Q1 merchants for the majority of it. Daniel Ricciardo starts in 15th place with Valtteri Bottas in 16th place. 2 drivers that are still very experienced on the Formula 1 grid, but still trying to find a drive for next season. Daniel Ricciardo starting to be talked about once again in terms of that Red Bull seat that is not technically available, but we'll get to that in a moment. But Daniel Ricciardo starting in 15th place. Really only one race that comes to mind for Daniel Ricciardo that was absolutely electric, and that was the sprint race in Miami. Can he do something a little bit special here in Silverstone for the team? And Valtteri Bottas, 16th place start for him. Starting to get linked to a few more teams though, Valtteri Bottas. Sort of in the talks with Williams, I think, whilst Carlos Sainz is still being and ahed over by various teams. I've seen Albon linked to Haas. I've seen Bottas linked to Haas. I've seen Bottas linked to Alpine. Various bits and pieces there. Kevin Magnussen starts in 17th place. Again, another driver, very experienced, but trying to find a seat for next season. See what Kevin Magnussen can do. He'll be very disappointed starting 11 positions down on his teammate. Esteban Ocon then starts in 18th place ahead of Pierre Gasly. Although Pierre Gasly didn't really try and qualify yesterday. Went out on the intermediate tyres for the first run, but never decided to go out after the red flag for a second run. And that's because he was replacing, well, almost everything in his power unit, to be honest, and therefore ended up just being in a position where he was taking, 50 places worth of grid penalties, and therefore not really worth his time. Just, he was going to start from the back of the pack, however it laid out, although doesn't start from exactly 20th place because Sergio Perez is starting from the pit lane. It's a little bit of a game changer, isn't it, for Sergio Perez? We've seen a few drivers starting from the pit lane in recent weeks, but Sergio Perez just shouldn't be where he really is, should it? You know, you're looking at Sergio Perez in a Red Bull, Max Verstappen leading the championship. Just all gone a little bit wrong for Sergio Perez, hasn't it? You know, post Monaco, I think you'd say again, it's just really not clicking for the Mexican. And Christian Horner came out yesterday, said himself, you know, we need to see 2 Red Bulls fighting towards the top. He said, there's 2 Mercedes up there, there's 2 McLarens up there. We really need to have 2 Red Bulls if we're going to be able to really bring the fight to those teams that are improving, those teams that are producing those positions and getting there every single weekend. And therefore, Sergio Perez starting from the pit lane, I think he's under a lot of pressure here. I think even though he's starting from the pit lane, the team would be expecting him to still finish in the points. So I think we need to keep an eye on Sergio Perez and see really what he can do. Obviously, that 2-year contract has been given to him earlier on in the season. I think we were all a bit surprised at the timing of that 2-year contract. But he really hasn't justified it, has he? Really has not justified it. Starting from 20th place. So that is your rundown of the 20 drivers as we hear the national anthem now of the British Grand Prix. Those 3, Russell, Hamilton and Norris, standing at the front of the pack, of course. Getting there. But let's get into it. If you are new to the channel as well, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button as well. Let's get that out of the way before we get into this. If you are enjoying it, hit the like. Also, if you want to watch a little video before we get into the Grand Prix itself, I made a video on that incident between Norris and Verstappen and how actually the 2024 season was leading up to something like that. Like, we should have predicted that it was coming at some point. Nobody knew it was going to come at Austria, but it was definitely on the cards at some point in this 2024 season. So I went through how the 2024 season has led up to that point and actually what could happen post Austria in the Silverstone Grand Prix and for the rest of the 2024 season onwards. So hit that first link in the description if you're interested in that, or if you're not, you know, you just want to help out the channel, maybe open it in another tab, let it play through. Just get that watch time up for myself. That'd be absolutely amazing. But the best thing you can do really is just leave a like on the live stream to make sure that we are in it and that we get, you know, the YouTube algorithm sees where we are. What are your thoughts in the chat then? 13 minutes to go. Yes, indeed. Who is the main antagonist of the Formula One movie? Since every movie needs an antagonist. Isn't it like Brad Pitt versus... It's kind of like the Lewis Hamilton story, isn't it? Like, the way I see it is Brad Pitt is kind of playing Fernando Alonso-ish. I mean, Fernando Alonso was a lot younger then, actually, so maybe that's a bit... Maybe like a... who's the... Well, Fernando Alonso, like, nowadays, I guess, would be the equivalent. Like, the old driver on the grid, right? The old, experienced driver. That's who Brad Pitt is playing. And then there's a guy alongside him, can't remember his name, who's playing like the Lewis Hamilton, like young, up-and-coming rookie who is trying to displace the older driver. So I don't know if there's an antagonist as such, but I think it's just a film about the battle between teammates. Although it's taking their time to get it done, isn't it? Because we saw them filming it last year here in Silverstone. We had that pretend Formula One team on the grid, like the 11th team on the grid, whilst they were filming it here in Silverstone. Although I do think it is coming out fairly soon. I want to say like 2025. Or is it this year? I can't remember. I haven't watched the movie trailer yet, though. But there is a Formula One movie coming up. Well, is Formula One affiliated? Or Lewis Hamilton affiliated? I don't really know how it works. It's linked to Formula One in one way or another, in that Lewis Hamilton, I think, is a producer on the movie, I want to say. But again, I don't know whether that's more just for the fact that then they can say Lewis Hamilton is the producer rather than actually needing Lewis Hamilton to produce. You know what I mean? I don't know how much experience Lewis Hamilton has in producing films. Summer 2025. Thank you, Gamer, for that. Yeah, summer 2025. There you go. I'll be able to sync up with you for the race. Yes, indeed. I will have live. Well, you'll see the live timings up here in terms of what lap of the race I'm on. And obviously, I'll let you know once the lights go out and where the drivers will be. So you can definitely sync up with myself. Lando Norris there getting prepared, having a chat to Zach Brown. Sort of a knowing smile from Lando Norris after qualifying yesterday, wasn't it? You know, he knows that if we look at the championship, he is the man that is closest to Max Verstappen. He knows that Spain, as I said, probably should have been a victory in his favor. I think Max Verstappen just did enough to keep Lando Norris at bay. It was a really, really good drive from Red Bull and Max Verstappen in Spain that I think kind of did that for him. And then also in Austria last time out, a little bit of underhand tactics, I guess you could say, from Max Verstappen, kept him in the winning position there. So Lando Norris, even though the Mercedes have looked quick this season, or quicker as we kind of progress through the season, and obviously both qualified in front of him, I think it was kind of a little bit of a, I don't mind starting in third place. I'm still ahead of Max Verstappen. Okay, I've got the two Mercedes cars in front of me, but I think Lando Norris has got that confidence in himself now where he's like, I think I can still close the gap to the Mercedes cars, and I think I can get the better of the Mercedes cars this weekend. So we'll see what Lando Norris can do from third place. Obviously, as a McLaren fan, going to be slightly biased throughout the Grand Prix. So if you're a Mercedes fan or a Max Verstappen fan, I do apologise if I if I let the mask slip a little bit and let my Lando Norris or Oscar Piastri bias push me in one direction or another. We're about 5-10 minutes away from the opening. 8 minutes, there you go, away from the start of this Grand Prix. And that's what I was saying. Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, especially if they can't really move themselves up in terms of the point scoring positions today, that gap between Oscar Piastri, Russell, Hamilton even, it's going to start to close in on the Ferraris pretty quickly. Like, the Ferraris are not picking up a lot of points at this moment in time. Charles Leclerc starting outside of the points positions, didn't score any points. It hasn't scored many points at all in the last few races. Isn't it that Nico Hulkenberg, if he finishes where he is and Charles Leclerc finishes outside the points, that like he's scored more than Charles Leclerc since Monaco, which is not great. Not great if you're a Ferrari fan. Well, if you're a neutral fan, just enjoy Formula One. That's where I used to kind of be. Well, if when McLaren were absolutely dead and buried, obviously I was pretty neutral because they weren't doing much, and the battles that mattered, I was kind of watching in a neutral mindset. Loki need Leclerc to eat this up. It needs to prove. Oh, Jamie Dawson, thank you so much, mate, for the £10 super chat. Unfortunately, I'll be working another hour or so, but I'll be watching later, reading the chat, so behave. Have a great stream. Make sure you leave a like. Is it the behave to me? I always behave, Jamie. I always behave. Thank you so much, mate. Yeah, I appreciate it. And we'll keep the Formula One track warm for you. The soft compound tyres, I'm sure, will be on by that point in the race. And we'll see what we can do. And that was not too bad, especially because I've got a feeling that there's going to be a safety car, maybe even a red flag at one point or another. It's just got that vibe of it, you know. Sometimes you come into a Formula One weekend, you see the mixed conditions, you see the fact that, you know, the free practices were very bitty, the fact that qualifying had a red flag and the drivers were in mixed conditions, that you just sometimes have that little bit of a feeling that something is going to happen and there's maybe going to be something that goes wrong, a safety car, a red flag, a few drivers colliding. It just has that kind of feel about it going into the Silverstone Grand Prix weekend from my perspective. Anyway, one final thing I will mention as we get 5 minutes away from the start of the Grand Prix itself. I'll pop the Constructors' Championship board up there so you can see why those 2 points for Alex Albon in the Williams would be a massive, massive point. Oh, hang on. That is not the updated one. Give me a moment. I always update it before the Grand Prix and then it just like resets itself. There you go. As on 19 points, Alpine on 9. That's what Williams, that couple of points just gets them away from Stakes Sauber. What's been a point where like Stay Sauber would have to have a really solid race. 4 points for that kind of team would be massive, and therefore just escapes them away. But one thing I was going to mention, I am joined by Mr. V's garage, after the Grand Prix. So if you want to hear mine and his reaction to the Silverstone Grand Prix, we're going to be live at 6 p.m. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you don't miss that live stream. And make sure you get your questions in. I'm going to pop up a question on the... I'm going to pop up a community tab post after the race to then get your questions in. And obviously, Mr. V's Garage, he's produced some of the incredible Formula One content recently. If you don't know him, really, really solid YouTuber in the Formula One space right now. He's going to be on the channel. So on our best behavior, make sure we turn up for him. Make sure we ask some nice questions. All right. Hello, Mallory. How you doing? The ice, let's go. Williams joins Formula E with a brand of Duracell battery. That would be good, to be fair. That would be good. Logan points. You know, maybe. Where's Logan starting again? 12. Not bad. Don't know if he goes forwards from that. What is the light goal today? That is a great question. I haven't had a little look. I think the highest we've ever got was 960 something. So, you know, if you're aiming for that, you're aiming high. You're aiming for like taking the most we've ever seen on the channel. Let's say, you know, aim for like a solid 200 to start. I feel like if we get 200, I'm always pretty happy with that. And then it's pushing on from that point. Yesterday in qualifying, we got 386. So I guess 400. It'll be Mr. V's first cameo from cutting the ponytail. Oh, yeah. We'll see. Let's see then. We're getting the cars on the grid, ready to go. Just seeing the drivers hopping into the car. And it'd be interesting to see what the tyre strategy will be, because obviously with rain likely to happen, it's still looking fairly, you know, fairly nice in terms of the weather. There was a lot of rain before, what was it, the Porsche race? I think the Porsche race was delayed or red flagged because of the rain. So the track will be very slippery still, quite green. Medium compound tires for the majority of drivers, but I can understand the softs, you know, because if the rain does come, the soft compound tires just that little bit better for that position. And Sergio Perez starting from the pit lane has to kind of do something a little bit dramatic, right? So starting on the hard compound tire, trying to go really long in that first stint, maybe get himself some space out on track to eat up some tarmac, and maybe get an undercut, or well, an overcut on some of the cars in front of him. Soft tires will be best, pitting early. That's what I think, yeah. You know, if the rain does come, soft compound tire runners will be very happy indeed, because you can just get that little bit more out of the soft compound tires still as the rain comes down. So a little bit tackier even in those conditions. Medium compound tire runners, though, I can understand. You know, the medium compound tire generally has been the best race tire throughout the season so far, is supposed to be the best race tire, and therefore starting on the medium compound tire, especially fresh medium tires. You know, you're looking at all these drivers, no used set of tires in sight, which is unlike the sprint weekends that we've had. For instance, Austria, lots of drivers starting on used tires then. 1 minute left to go. Then the formation lap is set to get underway momentarily. All set to the Lando Norris win. Yes, indeed, mate. Yes, indeed. Flops Ferrari as per. Forecast of rain is pretty high during the Grand Prix. There's been on and off throughout the entire day. That's what I mean. So there was a race earlier on. It was the Porsche race that was then red flagged because of some rain. You know, then they delayed the start to that race. So you never really know. This weekend has been so mixed. Obviously, obviously there's been a little bit of rain throughout the weekend as well. Formation lap set to get started then. The tyre warmers are off. Let's get ourselves set up for the race board. Ooh. Oh, yeah. Lewis Hamilton is already pointing to the left-hand side. So effectively what they're doing is, you know, as they release themselves for the formation lap, as they are right now, George Russell just coming down towards turn 1, they are laying down a little bit of rubber to just try and give themselves just even that tiniest little bit more grip going off the start, going into the actual Grand Prix in a lap's time. And Lewis Hamilton's car pointed almost at George Russell. Like, he couldn't be turned too much more to the left without him being facing the wrong direction. You know what I mean? He is absolutely going for that position and absolutely going to try and cut off George Russell down towards turn 1. We have seen those two Mercedes cars collide, I don't even know how many times. Obviously, Qatar last year being the big one, but Japan last year we saw them collide. They will be battling down towards turn 1, especially now that Lewis Hamilton is leaving the team for Ferrari. You know, you thought that they were battling a little bit too hard when they were teammates fully. Now they are still teammates, but they know Lewis Hamilton's leaving. So George Russell's got nothing to lose. Might as well go for the position. And same for Lewis Hamilton. He's leaving the team at the end of the year. He's got nothing to lose. So these two Mercedes starting side by side, even though they are teammates, it's not going to be a team game going down towards turn 1. And Lando Norris knows that as well. Will be trying to overtake where possible. He'll be thinking back to Spain, where George Russell started third on the grid. But obviously it's a very long run down to the Spain turn 1. He'll be thinking about that Spain Grand Prix where George Russell went around the outside of him and Max Verstappen to take the lead. Can Lando Norris replicate that here in Silverstone and jump from third to first in his McLaren car? Max Verstappen starting beside him. George Russell making his way around to the final couple of corners, starting to slow down the pack. Actually, Lewis Hamilton leaving a considerable gap between his teammate and himself. Maybe just forcing George to wait that little bit longer on the start grid. And then backing up the pack a little bit. George Russell takes his spot. Lewis Hamilton beside him. Oh. Pierre Gasly diving into the pits. We have an issue with the car. And it could be over before it starts for Pierre Gasly. Obviously took a handful of engine penalties coming into this weekend. And Alpine already seem to have an issue with that car. Esteban Ocon then is going to be the final car to line up on the grid as Gasly darts into the pits. Sergio Perez makes his way to the pit exit. Sergio Perez starting from the pit lane. Ocon takes his place. Green flag waved. And the 5 red lights illuminate to go out. And away we go then. George Russell is then leading. Lewis Hamilton peels to the left-hand side of the track straight away, as I said, and tries to go at his teammate into turn 1. Can't this time around. Max Verstappen and Oscar Piastri also side by side. And Piastri trying to go around. Lando Norris having a little look at Lewis Hamilton. Goes a little bit wide and opens the door to Max Verstappen to go around the outside. And Verstappen takes third place. Lando Norris, he leaving the door open a touch there. Taxed Lewis Hamilton just too much and opened the door for Max Verstappen to walk through it. Carlos Sainz also up into 6th place. Nico Hülkenberg with a dreadful start in the Haas has gone from 6th to 9th. Lance Stroll and Charles Leclerc gaining because of that. In fact, Leclerc all the way up from 11th place to 8th place. A really, really good start from the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. Fernando Alonso still in 10th. And Yuki Tsunoda now in 11th place as well. Zhou Guanyu goes back down to 15th as Daniel Ricciardo makes his way past again. Ocon and Magnussen had an awful start. So did Valtteri Bottas, now down in 18th place. But George Russell is the man leading the Grand Prix still. Obviously, medium compound tyres, no DRS for this first lap as the cars make their way round to the final sector. Russell and Hamilton still leading. Verstappen over a second behind. Won't get that DRS if it does activate. Oh, sorry, no, that's a second off the lead as Max Verstappen. Still within that DRS range then of Lewis Hamilton in front. Lando Norris trying to hold on to the back of the Red Bull as we see Albon and Sargent, the two Williamses, swapping positions with one another as DRS is enabled as the cars go past the start-finish line. Valtteri Bottas at the back of the pack crosses the start-finish line last, and Sergio Perez, you can see, just coming to turn 1 and turn 2. Now, I'm going to keep an eye on Sergio Perez's pace in comparison to the leaders of the Grand Prix. See what he can do in clean air in that Red Bull, although is going to be catching up to the back of Valtteri Bottas fairly swiftly. It's Russell from Hamilton from Verstappen, our top three. Lando Norris dropping back into 4th place. Oscar Piastri is maintained 5th. 6th place, Carlos Sainz. Lance Stroll's up into 7th. Charles Leclerc into 8th. And Nico Hülkenberg has dropped into 9th place. Missed out to Sainz, Stroll and Leclerc. As Lando Norris is chasing down Max Verstappen ahead of him. Obviously, the cars as heavy as they will be throughout the race, and also an eye on tyre strategy as well. We know that actually the medium compound tyres with the McLaren have been very, very solid towards the end of a stint. That's if we get to the end of a stint, because you can see there, George Russell being told on the radio, potential rain in 25 minutes. 25 minutes would be right on the cusp of when these medium compound tyres are likely to go off. Here's, of course, a 1 minute 30-second lap around here. George Russell and Lewis Hamilton coming around. Russell setting the fastest lap of anybody so far, but Lewis Hamilton keeping within touching distance, only 0.02 of a second slower than his teammate. DRS will be open for Lewis Hamilton, though still within a second. That can't be said of Max Verstappen in 3rd. He's dropped outside of DRS range of Lewis Hamilton, and he'll be under pressure from Lando Norris then, who will have the DRS range and will be wanting to get that podium position back from the Dutchman. Although we know when Lando Norris goes for an overtaking move on Max Verstappen from last time out in Austria, it's not always the cleanest of battles between those two. Oscar Piastri in 5th place still, and is actually trying to escape Carlos Sainz, who is still within DRS range. Stroll has DRS, Leclerc has DRS, Hülkenberg and Alonso too. The grid not really stretching itself out, but the top 10 settling into their positions just for a moment. Yuki Tsunoda having a little look at the back of Fernando Alonso. Logan Sargent on the radio. Oh, Alex Albon had a big piece of bodywork come off. Says Logan Sargent, his teammate running behind Alex Albon. We'll have to see if we have a replay of that incident. Don't know if there's been a little bit of a touch on Alex Albon and therefore it's dislodged something, but Logan Sargent saying that something has come off the back of that Williams car. Here we are then coming around, and George Russell starting the 4th lap of this Grand Prix in the lead still. Hamilton running away from Max Verstappen a little bit. Lando Norris closing in on the back of the Red Bull. Piastri also hanging with his teammate. And the grid all really condensed, apart from Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Perez. Bottas has dropped 3 seconds off the back of Kevin Magnussen, and Sergio Perez has now caught the back of the Finn. Race leader George Russell still. Hamilton now outside of DRS range. So Lando Norris, the only driver to have DRS in the top 4. There is a small shower that might appear on lap 6 of the Grand Prix. So all of the drivers being made aware that there is going to be a twist in the tail. There is going to be a weather warning that the cars will have to be wary of. Gasly, unfortunately, out of the race, Pango. There seemed to be an issue with Gasly's car on the formation lap, and he has not returned out of the grid. Lap 6, then, is only a couple of laps away if that shower is going to come. although it supposedly only might fall on turn 15. So just be that final sector. Turn 15 there, fairly high speed corner. Be a little bit careful on the slick tyres. Oh, it's Hulkenberg runs really wide at the start of the Grand Prix, and that's where he lost his positions. Finally getting some replays of the start. Max Verstappen. Oh, a little bit of wheel spin from Max Verstappen. We've seen Verstappen actually have a really, really solid starts this season. A little bit slow off the line, but it's actually this move here from Lando Norris. Goes to the left of Lewis Hamilton. Tries to get in front of the Mercedes. Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton actually just pushes Lando Norris wide and allows Max Verstappen to straighten the car up, get him driven out of there, and get ahead of Lando Norris. Here's Alex Albon. Look at the Aston Martin. Oh, and there is a collision. Fernando Alonso and Alex Albon did come to blows at turn 1, and that's because Fernando Alonso just slowed down. Alex Albon didn't quite react to it and just bumped the back of the Aston Martin car on that replay. But Alex Albon still running in 12th place. Zhou Guanyu had a little look at it as well. Oh, and had to get off the gas to make sure he didn't hit into the back of Alex Albon. And then I think there's also a touch between Alex Albon and one of the RBs. I think likely Daniel Ricciardo in that position as well. Nico Hulkenberg is under investigation, and that investigation comes to an end for leaving the track at turn 3 and possibly gaining an advantage. That is not going to be given. And now on the radio, we're being told lap 16 that the rain will come down. Lap 6, lap 16, different drivers being told different things. I think all of the teams just being wary at this moment in time that the rain is likely to come, but they just need to be flexible in terms of when they are likely to pit, or if they need to pit, to cover off any problems that might come with the rain. Obviously, the wet conditions were likely to see a driver around the kind of Yuki Tsunoda area of the track, maybe even an Alex Albon, be the first drivers to blink and go for some kind of maneuver in terms of intermediate tyres if the rain does come down that heavily. And then we'll see if they gain in terms of time. That's generally how the strategy works out in these wet races. Somebody has to go first, and it's kind of the guide for everybody else. If their lap times are quick, everybody else will come in for some tyres too. If their lap times are slow, everyone will stay out and make sure that they don't lose that advantage. Here we go then. Charles Leclerc having a look at Lance Stroll. DRS open in the Ferrari and not able to make it past. Stays 8th place right now, Charles Leclerc, but much improved on his 11th place start at the beginning of the Grand Prix. Looking to move forwards even further. Managed to get past Fernando Alonso, Nico Hulkenberg as well did Charles Leclerc. Now behind Lance Stroll. His teammate actually is getting further and further away. Charles Leclerc now 4 seconds off the back of Carlos Sainz. And the Ferrari will want to get past the Aston Martin and have both of the Ferraris side by side in 6th and 7th if possible. Esteban Ocon and Kevin Magnussen also having a little battle with one another at the back of the pack. And Kevin Magnussen coming out on top of that one. Daniel Ricciardo and Zhou Guanyu also swapping places in 14th and 15th. It's looking very, very close indeed. I think the top drivers maybe just settling into it a little bit, knowing that the rain is likely to come, and therefore not wanting to put their tyres into a bad window yet, holding on to them a little bit more than they maybe would, but also being able to judge whether or not the tyres are going to last until the rain gets to the point where they can swap to the intermediates. Because the worst thing you could possibly do is come in, swap tyres, go for another set of slicks, then the rain comes and you have to pit again for intermediate tyres. So maybe just holding out a little bit longer in this stint on the medium compound tyres, especially those front runners where the points are most important to them and most up for grabs. Russell, Hamilton, actually, just kind of very similar lap times between the two Mercedes car. George Russell edging away from his teammate a little bit at a time, but only 1.5 seconds the gap. And I think Lewis Hamilton will be happy to just sit 1.5 seconds behind his teammate till the opportunity arises to really go for a move. Max Verstappen also a couple of seconds off the back of the Mercedes cars. And Lando Norris, unfortunately, after kind of talking about the possibility of getting past the Mercedes, now finds himself stuck behind Max Verstappen for a little while. Verstappen dropping off the back of Lewis Hamilton by a couple of seconds, then another second to Lando Norris. Oscar Piastri still within DRS range. Lando Norris kind of dragging his teammate along with him, keeping him in the top 5. Carlos Sainz a couple of seconds off the back of Piastri, though. Weather alert, rain in 10 minutes now. So it's very much interchanging. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Different teams being told different things. The broadcast unsure. Rain in 10 laps, 10 minutes until a big shower. Says Esteban Ocon's radio. Of course, if it stays dry, we're expecting these medium compound tires to at least go a little bit into, the 20s, possibly even 30 laps. If you're going onto the soft compound tire. So a medium soft strategy is there for some of those cars, or a medium hard strategy. It's also been talked about before the Grand Prix as the kind of optimal way to go. But again, all depends on how much rain we will see. Zhou Guanyu and Valtteri Bottas having an absolute nightmare. In fact, what's happened to Zhou Guanyu? He's fallen all the way back down to 18th place. He must have gone off somewhere, right? Because he lost position to almost everybody in front of him. Magnussen, Perez, Ocon. Let's see if this is the replay of it. Sergio Perez fighting with Zhou Guanyu. Getting past. Getting through. Didn't seem to be anything untoward there. Here's Esteban Ocon trying to make a move on Zhou as well. And gets past. I think Zhou Guanyu just struggling with pace, actually. Ocon getting past and now falling away. And Zhou Guanyu actually falling into the clutches of his teammate fairly soon at the back of the pack. But here is where the focus should be. The two British drivers for Mercedes still 1-2 in this Grand Prix. Well, 1-2 in qualifying as well, but in this Grand Prix now running at the front of the pack. Verstappen behind in 3rd place, Lando Norris in 4th. I think most of the teams just settling in a little bit now. Very, very disappointed with Sauber, yeah. Does feel like they might just be done for this year, not really pushing forwards, knowing that they become Audi in a couple of years' time. It did make me wonder at the beginning of the season how much they were really going to put into it, And it seems like not a lot is the answer that we are getting, to be honest with you. Zhou Guanyu and Valtteri Bottas now running around at the back of the pack and considerably off the back of Esteban Ocon as well. Although Ocon also falling away a little bit from Sergio Perez and Kevin Magnussen. Sergio Perez now within touching distance of Kevin Magnussen. I think we'll go for the move on the Haas car. Running around in 16th place. Started from the pit lane, of course, Sergio Perez. He's kind of gambled that there won't be any rain, though, hasn't he? Going onto the hard compound tyre. Wanting to go really, really long with this stint. Whilst also overtaking as many back markers as possible. So Sergio Perez going for the strategy where he won't have to come in, or forced to come in due to any rain coming. Unless, of course, he's also playing the hard compound tyre. As soon as there is even the slightest hint of rain, he'll be the first driver out on track to get onto the intermediate. Sergio Perez might go that way and try and gain by going into the pits a little bit earlier than everybody else, getting onto the intermediate tyres if they're needed a little bit earlier, therefore making up the time that way around. So it'd be interesting. Again, Sergio Perez in that position, because he started from the pit lane, is one to keep an eye on in terms of those strategy maneuvers that then the top teams, top drivers, sorry, Red Bull, the top drivers of this Grand Prix will then start to adapt based off of. Thank you for the new subscribers. Appreciate that, lads. Coming in there. If you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. If you're enjoying what you're watching, hit the like button as well. Massively helped out the channel. I think we managed to get, what was it, 386 likes on the qualifying stream yesterday. So that is your goal for today. Can you get over 386 likes? We're already over the 250 like mark. So if you could hit that like button, that'd be absolutely amazing as we ride on board with Lando Norris under pressure from Oscar Piastri. Lando Norris just following behind Max Verstappen, who's been told we're expecting the rain to last around 5 minutes. Then there'll be a window where there won't be too much rain to deal with. And maybe we'll see some overtaking opportunities taken. What happened to Pierre Gasly? Seems like it was a gearbox issue for the Alpine on the formation lap. It meant he actually came in before we even got underway. So Pierre Gasly, the first retirement and only retirement from the Grand Prix so far. Audio while watching Tubbo's screen. Fair. Ooh, 300 likes on the video. Thank you very, very much indeed. Oscar Piastri still with the DRS to his teammate behind. The only driver with DRS until you hit Charles Leclerc, who's still stuck in 8th place. And it does just feel like there's not really the overtaking opportunities we were maybe expecting here this weekend, because Lando Norris looking racy, Oscar Piastri too, but just can't get past Max Verstappen, who's now 3 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton, who is in 2nd place still, by the way. So Max Verstappen actually falling away from the 2 Mercedes cars at the front of the pack. And it's been a very long time since we've said that. Doesn't it? Gives me almost 2020 vibes, where Max Verstappen was running in 3rd place behind the 2 Mercedes and had no ability to be able to get there. Let's see what happens to Max Verstappen throughout it. Still losing time to the 2 Mercedes in front, actually sort of 3/10 on that last lap. Verstappen over 3 seconds behind Hamilton. Norris 2nd behind Verstappen. I think not trying to keep within DRS range as such, but just trying to keep within touching distance without burning his medium compound tyres too much. Oh, here comes Zhou Guanyu. Is it going to be a big gamble from the Stake Sauber team? No, the medium compound tyres go on after starting on the softs. So did debate whether they were going to go really early on the intermediate tyres. I think it would have been way too early, don't get me wrong, but would have been very Stake Sauber to just chuck on some intermediate tyres, see if the rain came, and hobble around until the rain then gave them that lap time back. But no, Zhou Guanyu out on the medium compound tyres and will be running around very much at the back of the pack. Russell still with the fastest lap of the Grand Prix and still leading after 12 laps here in Silverstone. Oh, here we go. Charles Leclerc finally, and the move is made. We have a move inside the top 10. Charles Leclerc has been looking at the back of that Aston Martin for as long as he can remember. Got right up into 8th place off the start. Lance Stroll's been doing very well, actually, to defend from Charles Leclerc. But the opportunity finally arose, and Charles Leclerc putting that move in. Is this then where the medium compound tyres are starting to go off for a few of those cars that are maybe just outperforming where they should be? Charles Leclerc, though, 4.5 seconds gap to his teammate, and his teammate's 4.5 seconds off Piastri. So Leclerc, 9 seconds off the next non-Ferrari car. Lando Norris now looking like he's stepping on the gas a little bit. Here he is then, Lando Norris getting himself within 7/10 of Max Verstappen, has been hovering around a second and a half behind the Dutchman, and now has been, I think, given the go-ahead in terms of the McLaren team, thinking this is the time to strike to get yourself back up into 3rd place. We know that obviously the McLaren car is just that little bit better on these medium compound tyres, especially towards the end of the stint. Think back to the end of Imola, or even last time out in Austria, where Lando Norris towards the end of a stint on tyres just is that little bit more racy than the Red Bull of Max Verstappen. Verstappen, obviously, that damage to the bottom side of his Red Bull car yesterday. They've replaced as much as they possibly can under parc fermé conditions, but still won't be the Max Verstappen perfect car underneath him. And Verstappen now under pressure. Half a second the gap between Verstappen and Norris going into lap 14 of this lap 15 of this Grand Prix. 14 laps completed. And he was quicker on lap 14, was Lando Norris. DRS going to be wide open for the McLaren car. Will he go for a dive bomb move on Max Verstappen? Does he trust the Dutchman after what happened last time out in Austria? Let's have a little look. Lando Norris right on his tail, going towards Copse. Lando Norris picking up the slipstream through turn 9. Flat out through there. 10, 11, 12. Also with Max Verstappen still leading Norris. But that gap between the two cars getting ever smaller as Lando Norris fights the car through this middle sector of the track. His rear wing will be open. He's quite a long way back from Verstappen, but he's having a little look. Gets the slipstream. He's going to go for his Lando Norris. And there is Lando Norris moving back up into third place as he comes around turn 16 and carries through 17 and 18 ahead of Max Verstappen. The crowd here at Silverstone absolutely love that move. And Lando Norris back up into the podium places. Yes, he's 3 seconds off the back of the Mercedes cars. Let's see then what Lando Norris can do from this position here. It was the DRS open for the McLaren. I felt like he was maybe just that little bit further back, especially through turn 10, 11, 12, but closed that gap really, really quickly did Lando Norris. DRS wide open, down into the braking zone, gets on the inside, and Max Verstappen, not much he can do to defend from the McLaren there, takes third place. Let's keep an eye on Lando Norris's pace then. Was 3 seconds off the back of Lewis Hamilton at the start of that lap 16. See what he can do on this lap here, Lando Norris. Russell and Hamilton will have been given the push by the Mercedes team. Charles Leclerc on the radio. Rain is going to happen soon. It has hit that lap 16 that we were told it would be. Rain coming. Showers coming on the radio. Looking still light in terms of Oscar Piastri being told. And here you go. There you go. There's the indication you need. The crowds starting to put on their raincoats. And the rain is likely to come over the circuit any time now, as George Russell starts lap 17 of his home Grand Prix. A Grand Prix that he has led from the start and is now actually seemingly pushing that little bit harder, getting a little bit further away from Lewis Hamilton. The gap now 1.7 seconds. Here's a replay of Kevin Magnussen moving ahead of Daniel Ricciardo up into 14th place. His teammate Nico Hülkenberg still running in the points in 9th, but now under pressure from Fernando Alonso behind in 10th. And actually, Hülkenberg with DRS, Fernando Alonso with DRS as well. Yuki Tsunoda 4 seconds off in 11th place, just outside the points. The Ferraris, though, just seem to be in absolute no-man land. 6th and 7th place. Carlos Sainz now 6 seconds off the back of Oscar Piastri, who is putting Max Verstappen under pressure. And Charles Leclerc then another 6 seconds behind that. So the Ferraris not looking like they're going to make any moves from 6th and 7th on the grid. It's instead going to be the top 5 drivers that are battling it out for the victories. The 2 Mercedes, the 2 McLarens, and the sole Red Bull of Max Verstappen is now under even more pressure. Oscar Piastri will have seen his teammate make a move down into this corner last time out, and now is going to make a move for himself. Is Oscar Piastri going to be able to hold it? Yes, just about. And almost a carbon copy of Lando Norris's overtaking maneuver on Verstappen. Oscar Piastri does the same. You had your eyes on the wrong part of the track, you'd have probably thought it was a replay, because Oscar Piastri moves up into 4th place and puts our championship leader, Max Verstappen, back down into 5th. Verstappen on the radio. Target would be to try and survive this pocket of rain. But they're going to give Max Verstappen the call, saying that Lewis Hamilton has just stepped on the gas a little bit. And whilst I was watching Oscar Piastri overtaking Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton is trying to take the lead of this Grand Prix. He is right under the rear wing of George Russell, taking advantage of George Russell possibly getting caught out by a little bit of the weather changing and maybe thinking about whether or not he needs to change tyres because of the rain coming in. Hamilton is now within 3/10 of his teammate. Is right underneath the rear wing of George Russell. He's going to follow him through the fast middle sector, through 11, 12, 13 altogether, around turn 14. And this is where we've seen Lando Norris overtake Verstappen, Piastri overtake Verstappen, and Hamilton might go for a move as well. DRS open on the Mercedes. He's going to go up the inside, and it is going to be Lewis Hamilton to take the lead of Silverstone. Hamilton is your new race leader. Goes down into turn 15, 16, and 17 and takes the lead of it. George Russell now down into 2nd place. And whilst those two were interchanging, Lando Norris has closed in. He's now 2 seconds behind this pack of Mercedes cars. Is George Russell going to have a look back at his teammate? Not this time around. He's going to try. Oh! And both Mercedes cars have gone off. Both Mercedes cars have made a mistake, and that has put Lando Norris right under the rear wing of George Russell. Both of the Mercedes cars going super deep through turn 1, and then it's opened the doors. Lando Norris going to be able to get past Russell. Yes! Lando Norris up into 2nd place. And Lando Norris on the radio, they both joined very unsafely. Lando Norris now right under the rear wing of Lewis Hamilton. Don't know what the mistake there was from both of the Mercedes cars. Really, really crazy to see. DRS has been disabled because of the weather conditions. So DRS is now disabled out on track. Still, though, cars going around on the slick tyres, the mediums staying on. You can see the spray starting to build up. And the car's shaking around a little bit. I think the tyres are going to start to struggle in these conditions. We're seeing Lando Norris getting a little bit out of shape, actually, through that middle sector, just losing a touch of time to Lewis Hamilton in front. George Russell then now 3rd. Oscar Piastri in 4th place. This will be a real test for Oscar Piastri. Obviously, still very early on in his Formula 1 career. Now having to deal with this mixed weather conditions and an opportunity at running towards the top end of the grid, especially seen his teammate doing things like this. Lando Norris closing in on Lewis Hamilton. Lando Norris closing in on Lewis Hamilton, goes down towards turn 1 and takes the lead in Silverstone. It was Russell at first, Hamilton took the lead, and now Lando Norris, the 3rd British driver, taking the lead of the British Grand Prix. Gets a little bit out of shape. And George Russell also trying to get around the outside, but then opens the door to Oscar Piastri. Piastri, a little shake of oversteer, but gets through. And the Australian gets into the top 3. Piastri takes 3rd place. Charles Leclerc has come into the pits for Ferrari. Maybe the McLaren just being a little bit better on its tyres, and the McLaren's looking for a 1-2 here as Oscar Piastri now putting Hamilton under pressure. Come on, boys. Lando Norris leads by 1.6 seconds. Here comes Oscar Piastri then, up the rear end of Hamilton. Decides not to go for it. Down to turn 9. Is going to follow Hamilton through 10, 11, 12, snaking through these S sections. Lando Norris still leading the ground. Oh, Lando Norris has gone off. Lando Norris went off there through the S's. And Lewis Hamilton putting Oscar Piastri onto the grass. A touch of grass for the Australian, but Oscar Piastri is going to try and come up the inside. He's seen his teammate do it, and now is following in his teammate's footsteps to take 2nd place. Is Lando Norris leading? Oscar Piastri in 2nd. Hamilton and Russell, after Russell leading the Grand Prix for such a long time, has dropped all the way down to 4th place and outside of the podium places. Lewis Hamilton in third. Max Verstappen being left for dead by this battle at the front is now in 5th place. Lewis Hamilton still dry in a lot of places. The Mercedes team saying, do you want to swap to the intermediate tyres? Hamilton saying no. We have seen Charles Leclerc, Valtteri Bottas, oh no, sorry, Bottas not. We've seen Leclerc, Perez, Ocon and Zhou all jump onto the intermediate tyres so far. In fact, Zhou Guanyu getting out of the way of the race leaders as he is lapped by the top 4. Let's have a little look then. See if Charles Leclerc, in terms of his lap time, is that much quicker than Lando Norris. Lando Norris putting in 137.7s right now. Piastri 137.3. And Carlos Sainz now also overtaking Zhou Guanyu. My goodness me, what a 5 laps that was. George Russell went from leading, is now in 4th place. Lando Norris scything through once he was released by Max Verstappen, getting up to the back of both of the Mercedes cars, taking the lead. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri following in Lando Norris's footsteps, just getting himself up into 2nd place. We could be looking at a 1-2 here for McLaren, as the Mercedes cars fall to 3rd and 4th. Max Verstappen 5th, Carlos Sainz 6th. Charles Leclerc then is the one to be having a look at. He is the fastest man out on track on the intermediate tyres. It's just whether his lap times are closing in on the lap times of the drivers towards the top end of the grid. Lewis Hamilton was offered the intermediate tyres, decided against it. Well, actually, the rain does seem to have stopped. There's much less spray out on the track. And now Lando Norris back down into 131s. So the 6 seconds that he lost last time around. And Sergio Perez saying on the radio, it's too dry. It's too dry for the intermediate tyres. And I think Sergio Perez might be right. In fact, we're going to see Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez coming around the final couple of corners, and we'll see what their lap times are like. Charles Leclerc then coming around, crosses the start-finish line. It's a 1:42.8 from Charles Leclerc. 11 seconds off the pace of Lando Norris. And it does seem like those drivers that gambled, the Leclercs, Perez, Ocons and Zhous, are going to really struggle now on the intermediate tyres. And in fact, are probably going to have to swap back onto slicks. So Lando Norris, Piastri and Hamilton will be very happy indeed that they stayed out on the medium tyre and are still up there on there. Oh, Lando Norris putting in the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, but looking a little bit shaky as Lando Norris. I think those medium compound tyres will start to degrade that little bit quicker because of the rain, putting some extra stress through them. The squirming that they were doing. Here's an overtake replay from Oscar Piastri watching on board. He was basically just copying what Lando Norris did. He did exactly the same as Lando Norris to get past Max Verstappen and waited for a little gap. Both of the Mercedes cars actually going wide at turn 1 was what allowed Lando Norris the opportunity to close in so quickly. And as soon as Lando Norris started causing commotion, Oscar Piastri was also there to jump in as well. Strategy calls going onto the intermediate tyres, not the one. In fact, Esteban Ocon coming in again, swapping onto the mediums once more. Charles Leclerc still being left out on the intermediate tyres, and Charles Leclerc really cannot catch a break since winning in Monaco, can he? It's just every single weekend there's something or another that goes wrong for Charles Leclerc. And he jumped up into the points places after starting in 11th, now all the way down in 16th and absolutely dead and buried. He was 10 seconds slower than Valtteri Bottas last lap, let alone any of the front runners. Lando Norris still leading the Grand Prix, quickest lap time of anybody. A 1:30.8 last time, comes across the start-finish line. It's a 1:31.1 from Lando Norris again. And DRS has even been enabled now by the race control. It means Lando Norris, because of that DRS being enabled, well, Oscar Piastri more so will be the man to have a think Lewis Hamilton not too far off, still 1.2 seconds off the back of the Australian. It's not over and done with yet. Especially because Oscar Piastri not really known to be the gentlest on his tyres in comparison to his teammate. Has Lewis Hamilton been able to hold on to a little bit more of these mediums? And we have another... Ooh. Lando Norris being let know on the radio that there is another spurt of rain coming. This could be an even longer downpour. There is Sergio Perez, who is about to be lapped by race leader Lando Norris in the Red Bull. We now then have Max Verstappen nearly 5 seconds off the back. Carlos Sainz has actually done quite well in all of that commotion. He's now only a second behind Max Verstappen, who's running in 5th place. Nico Hülkenberg has also jumped in front of Lance Stroll. So is Fernando Alonso, and Yuki Tsunoda obviously now up into the point scoring places after Charles Leclerc gambled onto the intermediate tyres and has dropped all the way down to 16th. That's our top 10 right now. It's Norris, Piastri, Hamilton, Russell, Verstappen, Sainz, Hülkenberg, Alonso, Stroll and Tsunoda running in the points. So we're seeing the Red Bull of Sergio Perez, blue flags being waved and dropping a lap behind the McLarens and the Mercedes. It's been a very long time since we've seen a Red Bull look a lot slower than those cars now leading the Grand Prix. Checo on the intermediate tyres, squirming around. Clearly not the right lap for intermediate tyres. Way too dry out on track. Is rain coming? Lando Norris was let know on the radio that there is going to be rain soon. We just need to be careful how we judge this overtaking maneuver when we go for the tyres. Oh, there's Charles Leclerc on the intermediate tyres, actually losing it as he gets lapped by the front runners as well. George Russell makes his way past Charles Leclerc, whilst Leclerc is off the track at turn 12. Carlos Sainz actually closed into the back of DRS range of Max Verstappen. Verstappen and Perez making their way past Sergio Perez, Max Verstappen's teammate. And DRS has been disabled once again. So here you go. The rain is coming. And the rain falling on the track means the stewards have decided it's not safe to have DRS, which Carlos Sainz will be really frustrated about. He was just closing up to the back of Max Verstappen, got himself within half a second of Verstappen. And DRS disabled, so he was unable to use it for the overtaking maneuver down towards turn 1. Lando Norris, 1.3 seconds the lead from Piastri. Piastri also now just edging away from Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton was within that second of Piastri just for a moment. Now back down to 2 seconds behind the Australian. Russell, oh! Carlos Sainz. I think Verstappen, sorry, has got his rain light on. And Sainz almost losing his Ferrari, was within a second of Verstappen, now a second and a half behind him after a little bit of a wobble from the Spaniard. Max Verstappen, though, 7.5 seconds off the top 4. I can't remember a race outside of, Singapore last year, where Max Verstappen has been so far off the pace of the leading cars. And Oscar Piastri has just actually closed into his teammate. Was that Lando Norris? A little mistake, possibly, from Lando Norris has meant that Oscar Piastri is now within half a second of his teammate. The rain is starting to come. Oscar Piastri letting the team know it's too early for inters. And Max Verstappen, box. Let's see then. Verstappen actually followed into the pits by Carlos Sainz. So Verstappen and Sainz deciding that this is the time. And this is going to be a little bit awkward for the McLarens because obviously they're so close to one another that they're not going to be able to double stack the cars. So if the intermediate tyres are the tyre choice, Lando Norris is going to get out onto them first, you would imagine. And Oscar Piastri is going to have to do another lap on the mediums. So that's maybe why the McLaren team were saying to Oscar, look, can we get you on the intermediate tyres maybe a little bit early? They don't want to lose out to the Mercedes cars, who are only a couple of seconds behind. Lando Norris, though, looking uncomfortable on those medium tyres. Starting to just be under a bit of pressure. A lot of spray coming off the tyres there. That's the real indication, isn't it? When you see the spray being lifted up by these Formula One cars. And they're going to be very close to one another. Oscar Piastri still within half a second of Lando Norris. Let's see then. Hulkenberg also is coming for the intermediate tyres. Stroll's in. Bottas is on the intermediate tyres now. Max Verstappen came out in 5th place. Carlos Sainz still 6th. So those guys had a lot of clear tracks. Just whether or not Max Verstappen's lap times are going to be up there. And Lando Norris, box, box. There it is, Lando Norris in. Hamilton, box, box to cover. And Mercedes trying to double stack. So George Russell, they could have used Piastri here, the McLaren team. They really wanted to give Lando Norris the edge. It's going to be a really, really tight call and a very tough pit window. Lando Norris in, then Hamilton in as well. George Russell's going to have to slow down in the pits to hope that his teammate gets out of the way. A very swift stop from the Mercedes team is going to still cost Russell overall, but a really solid double stack stop, you have to say, from the Mercedes team. Piastri then is going to be leading the Grand Prix on the medium tyre. Norris comes out still in 2nd place. Hamilton and Verstappen has got the jump on George Russell. Russell comes out behind Max Verstappen and behind Carlos Sainz. George Russell, the real loser in those pit stops then. Verstappen and Sainz getting the undercut on them. Hulkenberg, Stroll, Tsunoda all coming into the points once again. Alonso and Tsunoda, actually coming into the pits now. Oh, and it's a slow stop from Tsunoda. That's not going to help him, as Albon and Magnussen are also going to come into the pits and change their medium tyres as well. Oscar Piastri then has had to do another lap on the mediums. Oscar Piastri is going to really struggle. I think Oscar Piastri, this is going to kill his race. Lando Norris actually catching the back of Oscar Piastri right now. Oh, you've got a feel for Oscar Piastri here. He was half a second behind his teammate. He's going to come out so far back. And Verstappen, great calls as his race engineer. And Oscar Piastri has only just made his way into the pits as Lando Norris makes his way past the pit entrance. So Oscar Piastri has gone from running in 2nd place and is going to fall all the way down this race order. In fact, it's going to come out miles behind the likes of Carlos Sainz. It's getting very wet in a few areas of the track. The rain tumbling down in the pit lane as well. Everyone now onto intermediate tyres as Oscar Piastri is the final driver to stop. I think they should have pitted Piastri when they said. Piastri, though, said, no, it's too dry. And Oscar Piastri with a very, very slow lap there has put Piastri back behind Carlos Sainz. And in fact, Sergio Perez is between them as well. Hamilton being told, this is our time then. Hamilton, 3.5 seconds off the back of Lando Norris. Hammer time indeed. 24 laps left to go in all of this. Oscar Piastri will absolutely be livid with that. Has really cost him massively in all of that. And Oscar Piastri, no undercut for him. Was undercut by Hamilton, Verstappen, Russell and Sainz, all gaining on Piastri there. And not only gaining in terms of track position, but so much lap time as well. Piastri miles off the back of Carlos Sainz, 5 seconds down on the Ferrari. And doesn't have the same kind of tyre advantage on the intermediates that he did on the mediums that put him in a position where he was running in 2nd place after all of that. Hamilton now running in 2nd. Verstappen running in 3rd. Russell in 4th. George Russell, again, will be so frustrated. Started the on pole position, was running first place for a good 20 laps, and then it all seemed to go wrong for George Russell very, very quickly. Now running in 4th place and has even lost out to Max Verstappen. Sergio Perez into the pits once again for Red Bull. Let's see what Sergio Perez does here. Is it going to be intermediates again for Sergio Perez? They put them on way too early beforehand. Or is it going to be a gamble? Do they go for some slick tyres on the Red Bull? Not really much to lose when Sergio Perez is being lapped at this point by the leaders. And running in 17th place overall. There is Oscar Piastri. Is closing into the back of Carlos Sainz. We know that the McLaren is quicker here this weekend. And he does have time. He's got 23 laps left to go as Oscar Piastri. But I think a little bit disheartened by that. The rain ending in 15 minutes time. So we're looking around lap 40 for the rain to possibly come to an end. Here's Sergio Perez, the replay of the pit stop. And it is another set of intermediate tyres. And a slow stop. The rear left tyre. It was the rear left tyre again. It was the rear left tyre that was slow on Max Verstappen's car in Austria last week. The rear left again slow onto Sergio Perez's car here. Whoever it's the rear left tyre wheel gun is going to be having some chats with Christian Horner, I would imagine. I thought we were going to see an all-Brit podium. I mean, it's still not too far off happening. George Russell is closing into the back of Max Verstappen as we speak. Let's have a little look at their lap time so you can see. In fact, let me just get... So here you go. Let's have a little look at the race trace. So you can see Max Verstappen still falling off the back. Lando Norris leading. Hamilton pretty much matching Lando Norris in terms of lap time at this point in the Grand Prix. And then you can see Max Verstappen falling off. But George Russell doing fairly well to hold on. I think we'll kind of lose out of touch because he's in the spray of Max Verstappen. But you can see that 2 lines there. Red Bull and Mercedes in 3rd and 4th place are getting closer to one another. Carlos Sainz, though, falling off a cliff in terms of pace compared to the front runners of this Grand Prix. So Russell is closing in on Verstappen. And the top 3 being all Great British drivers is definitely still on. Oscar Piastri is also catching up massively to the back of Carlos Sainz. Another 6 laps. Lewis Hamilton is told that the rain is going to last for. When do they go for it? Do they go for a set of soft compound tyres maybe towards the end of this Grand Prix? Oh, and Oscar Piastri is going to catch up to the back of Carlos Sainz very quickly. Here's Carlos Sainz and Oscar Piastri. Piastri obviously pitted, falling behind Carlos Sainz, but look how quickly he is closing in on Carlos Sainz's car. And those 2 lines are going to intersect very, very soon. So keep an eye on Oscar Piastri, who's also going to be making a move on Carlos Sainz very soon as well. Rain still for another 5 or 6 laps or so. Lando Norris still leading the Grand Prix, 3 seconds ahead of Hamilton. In fact, those 2 have disappeared away from Max Verstappen, still 7 seconds off the back. Front tyres are falling apart, says Lewis Hamilton. So are we getting to the point where it is too dry for the intermediate tyres? A lot of the front runners have only been on them for a few laps. You're looking Lando Norris only stopped 4 laps ago. Hamilton 4 laps too. Verstappen's been on the intermediate tyres 5 laps. And already Hamilton saying that they're starting to drift away from actually being a viable tyre. And actually, yeah, looking at Max Verstappen's intermediate tyres, look at the front left graining on Max Verstappen's car. I can understand why Lewis Hamilton is concerned. Looking like the tyres are going to just slowly rip themselves apart as the track dries. There's areas of the track that are completely bone dry, and then you see them come through this middle sector in particular, kind of around 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, where it's still very, very damp and the spray is coming off the cars. Oscar Piastri, though, closing into the back of Carlos Sainz. Just a shame that Carlos Sainz is 6.5 seconds off Russell. So Piastri is going to have to do something incredibly special to get himself back into contention for the top spots. Should have pitted that little bit. And there's where the spray is just coming off. The intermediate tyres ripping themselves apart on the dry sections, but then on the wet sections, you can see why they wouldn't want slick tyres. So much water still tumbling down onto the circuit between the final couple of corners and turn one down that pit straight. The rain still falling on the McLaren pit wall, and the rain falling on Oscar Piastri's race at this moment in time. As much as he's catching Carlos Sainz, he should really be catching the likes of Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton towards the top end of the grid. Lando Norris still quickest of anybody so far, but a 1:42.2 last time around. Just got himself another couple attempts on Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton dropping to about 4 seconds behind the race lead, and looking like he's going to fall away from Lando Norris. Lando Norris also just a little bit better on his tyres. Hopefully the same applies for the intermediate tyres as well. Very treacherous though. 5 laps completed on these intermediate tyres. You can see that they are starting to bald in spots just because of where the track is dry. DRS still disabled at this point. The lap still too wet in the eyes of the stewards to enable any DRS at this point. Oh, and Russell pits. Russell's come in. Retire the car. Oh, no. George Russell, our pole sitter. The man who was closing in on the back of Max Verstappen. And George Russell into the pits. And they're retiring the Mercedes car. And our pole sitter is going to be out. George Russell, what a frustrating race for George Russell. Oh, no. George Russell has to retire the car. Don't know what happened there, unfortunately. But George Russell out of the Grand Prix. A technical issue for the pole sitter George Russell, and he's going to start tumbling down the order and out of this Grand Prix. That is an absolute hammer blow to the weekend for George Russell. It wasn't going well. He'd done really, really well to hold on to first place for almost that first stint, and then the issues maybe started to arise, started to lose out. The likes of Norris, Piastri, Hamilton all managed to get past George Russell. He was down in 4th place for a little while. Was running behind Max Verstappen there, still in 4th. The water system was losing water pressure within the car. And Nico Hülkenberg, actually, outside of that, is now running in 6th place and actually looking fairly comfortable in 6th place. Okay, yes, he's 19 seconds off the back of Piastri, but 3 seconds ahead of Stroll, who's then 8.5 seconds ahead of Alonso. Nico Hülkenberg is on for a 6th place finish in the Haas once again. Wow. Lewis Hamilton, though, being told that his teammate is retired, has actually decided to turn up the heat a little bit. Now within 3 seconds of Lando Norris for the first time in a little while. Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton, 7 laps done on those intermediate tyres, 18 laps left to go. You'd assume there's going to be a swap back onto the slicks at some point. When is that going to be? Oh, Kevin Magnussen. Oh, just gets a little bit onto the wet. And actually, I think got onto the paint there. And even on the intermediate tyres, the paint is so slippery. Nearly loses Kevin Magnussen's Haas car. And he'd have been really gutted if he'd have lost that there, because he is running in 11th place. So just one problem for any of the cars running in the top 10 would have opened the door to him. Norris, Hamilton, Verstappen are top 3. Sainz and Piastri 4th and 5th. Then no Leclerc, no Perez. They're running in 15th and 16th place. George Russell's retired. It's Hülkenberg running in 6th place. Then we've got Stroll and Alonso in the Aston Martins, Yuki Tsunoda running in 9th place, and Alex Albon running in the final point scoring place for Williams. A stunning, stunning race this has been. Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez will be ruining that swap onto the intermediate tyres. Charles Leclerc in particular was running in the point scoring places, could have put himself in the mix where Oscar Piastri currently finds himself. Obviously, Sainz 10 seconds off the top 3. Piastri on for catching Carlos Sainz, but 2 seconds adrift now. Lando Norris is going to be under pressure from Lewis Hamilton fairly soon, though. Hamilton, I said close to within 3 seconds. Now looking to be within 2 seconds of Lando Norris. The gap down to 1.9 between Norris and Hamilton. Verstappen still running in 3rd place in 7th. And isn't it so annoying that even when Max Verstappen has a bad weekend, he's still probably going to end up with a podium? Goodness me, that man. At Red Bull, just inevitable is Max Verstappen. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll take this opportunity to say, if you're enjoying the coverage, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button too. And I shouldn't have taken that opportunity because here comes Lando Norris with Lewis Hamilton faster than him by 0.6 of a second last lap and actually closing in once again. Wow. If we could hit the likes on the stream though, that'd be absolutely amazing. We're on 425 likes by the looks of the chat. The most a Grand Prix has got this season was 960. So if we can get anywhere near that, that would be absolutely phenomenal. There's over 1,000 people in the chat, nearly 2,000 people in the chat. We could definitely get it up to 1,000 likes. That'd be the first thing I've ever made where there's 1,000 likes on it. Just imagine it. You could be part of that. Thank you guys for supporting though. If you are enjoying this, hit the like. We will be live after the race as well to get the post-race reaction of Mr. V's Garage. He'll be joining us on the channel at 6 p.m. So make sure you're subscribed and you don't miss that as well. Oh, Lando Norris. A little mistake. And that was what allowed Lewis Hamilton. Ooh. Wow, okay, that was very, very close to a proper accident there for Lando Norris. And your race leader, Lando Norris, still ahead of Hamilton by 2.1 seconds. Verstappen actually ticking a little bit quicker in recent laps, closing the gap to 6.6 seconds. Carlos Sainz now dropping further off that. Oscar Piastri must be so frustrated behind Carlos Sainz. Has way more pace than the Ferrari, but just not able to get in front at this moment in time. Surely the undercut for Piastri. As soon as the slick tyres are viable, has to be the way that the McLaren team go, especially because Hülkenberg is 19.6 seconds off the back anyway. So it's not like Piastri is going to really lose out to a bunch of cars. He might come out just behind Hülkenberg, although in a couple of laps time that won't be the case. Nico Hülkenberg, we're on board with him actually, running in 6th place. Lance Stroll 3.2 seconds behind, comfortably in 6th in the Haas car and doing a phenomenal job once again. I just feel like every race at this moment in time, I'm just praising Nico Hülkenberg for doing what he should be doing every single weekend. He looks so incredibly quick, and you have to give it to Audi, Sauber, however you want to frame it, for getting him in next year. Lando Norris waiting for that opportunity to pit. Lewis Hamilton 2 seconds behind. Verstappen saying that he wants to stay out that little bit longer. So Verstappen closing in on it. And Carlos Sainz in 4th spot, nearly 13 seconds off the pace. So it is really just the top 3 to keep your eye on, and even the top 2. Piastri on the radio. And yeah, Oscar Piastri wants the medium compound tyre on the car if he can have it. Here comes Kevin Magnussen for a set of softs. Daniel Ricciardo also into the pits as well. Lewis Hamilton, box. And Lando Norris has stayed out. Lando Norris has stayed out. Lewis Hamilton has come into the pits. Ooh. Verstappen into the pits too. So Lando Norris staying out for an extra lap. Oscar Piastri surely coming in. Come on, Oscar. In you come. In you come. Yeah. Mercedes, the McLaren team out in the pits. Surely coming in is Oscar Piastri. Yes. Carlos Sainz, though, stays out on the intermediate tyres. Nico Hülkenberg stays out as well. Oh, no, just coming around the final couple of corners. Hülkenberg in. Hülkenberg out. Hülkenberg stays out on the intermediate tyres. Lance Stroll stays out as well. Ooh. A little bit of a mix in terms of pit strategies here then. Lewis Hamilton onto the softs. Max Verstappen onto the hards. Ooh. I suppose it is a used set of softs for Lewis Hamilton, so they're maybe a little bit wary of that. Verstappen, though, onto the hard compound tyre. Not what I expected. And Oscar Piastri coming out as well. Lando Norris leads the Grand Prix still. He's just coming around the middle sector. Is following Kevin Magnussen around. Magnussen on a soft compound tyre already. Obviously, 20 seconds, the general pit stop time. Lewis Hamilton, 23 seconds off the lead, according to the statistics. Lando Norris in. Lando Norris wants any slick tyre. Here we go then. Lando Norris having the debate. Does he go mediums? Does he go softs? Let's see what it is for Lando Norris, our race leader. It's going to be soft compound tyres. It's going to be soft tyres onto Lando Norris's car. Oscar Piastri was on the mediums, and Lewis Hamilton is just coming past the start-finish line. This is going to be tight. Lewis Hamilton is going to be coming around the first corner. There is Lewis Hamilton to take the lead of the Grand Prix. And Lando Norris, 1 second behind Hamilton. It's going to be a sprint to the end between these two. Hamilton on the soft compound tyre and Lando Norris on the softs as well. Carlos Sainz finally comes in, but has lost that place to Piastri. So Piastri finally released from behind the Ferrari. He's going to come out back in 5th place. Nico Hülkenberg and Lance Stroll also coming in as well. Lewis Hamilton takes the lead, then 2.3 seconds the gap to Lando Norris. Verstappen 6.5 seconds behind. So it's going to be Hamilton versus Norris for 10 laps here to see who is going to come out on top. Piastri in 4th place, 17.5 seconds off the back of him. Carlos Sainz, 24 seconds off the lead. Wow. Hülkenberg in 6th place, 45 seconds off the lead, but he won't worried about that. He'll be happy that he is still 4 seconds ahead of Lance Stroll, running in 6th place in a Haas car. Take a bow, Nico Hülkenberg. There's time yet. There's still time yet. Lando Norris will be frustrated that he didn't come in. Obviously, Lewis Hamilton got the undercut ahead out on track now, but we've seen Lando Norris overtake Lewis Hamilton once today. Will we see it again? In fact, Max Verstappen sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix on the hard tyre. And Lewis Hamilton being told Lando Norris is on the same tyre. Lewis Hamilton wants to be left to it. I think the medium tyre would have been the best, you know. I think Piastri was on the right as Piastri sets the fastest lap of the race. I think the medium tyre would have been the choice if it was me. But it was not me. It was Lando Norris. And he's 2.5 seconds off the lead of the race. Verstappen 6 seconds off them. And looking very quick indeed. Is Max Verstappen actually still within touching distance here of the lead? 3.5 seconds off Norris. And it would be very Max Verstappen to come out victorious in all of this, wouldn't it? Just inevitable is Max Verstappen. A horrible weekend for him, you could argue, and still a podium place. Oscar Piastri in 4th, 10 seconds off the back of the Red Bull. DRS is now enabled as well. Lando Norris needs to get within DRS range for that to be any need for him. Carlos Sainz, 9 seconds off Piastri. Hülkenberg then 21 seconds back from that. there's no real battles, unfortunately. Alex Albon, the closest driver to anybody, is half a second behind Yuki Tsunoda. So maybe we'll see the Williams battle with the RB. But apart from that, I feel like the strategy calls that most drivers have had kind of left them a little bit dead and buried. Saying that, Lando Norris sets the fastest lap, followed by Verstappen, who goes even quicker. So both Verstappen and Norris closing in on Lewis Hamilton. So is Oscar Piastri, but Piastri too far away, in my opinion, with 11 laps left to go to actually be in contention of gaining any positions. 11 laps to go. Lewis Hamilton leading Silverstone, as he has many times in his career before. Lando Norris frustratingly second, and it does always feel like Lando Norris is frustratingly second at this moment in time. As a McLaren fan, it is absolutely agonizing. 2.5 seconds the gap. 3 seconds once more to Max Verstappen. 10 seconds to Piastri. Carlos Sainz 5th. Nico Hulkenberg 6th. Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso running 7th and 8th in the Aston Martins. And then VCARB have Yuki Tsunoda running 9th. Alex Albon, the final point scoring place, in 10th. And he is 11.8 seconds ahead of Kevin Magnussen. So very unlikely that Alex Albon is going to lose out on a point scoring place for Williams here, with their British Grand Prix special livery as well. Logan Sargent actually closing into the back of Kevin Magnussen. So likely that the Williams will finish 10th and possibly 11th for Logan Sargent as well. Daniel Ricciardo running 13th, Bottas 14th, Charles Leclerc running all the way down in 15th place, is still a lap behind the leaders after everything that has gone on for him this afternoon. Sergio Perez started from the pit lane, is running in 16th, Esteban Ocon 17th, Zhou Guanyu, the slowest driver out there, 2 laps down on the race leader, Lewis Hamilton. George Russell, a frustrating technical issue meant that he dropped out of the race after losing the lead. To be fair, was only running in 4th place was George Russell, but still was in contention for a podium place. And Russell out of it. Pierre Gasly didn't really take part this afternoon on the formation lap. Had a gearbox issue in his Alpine and also is out of the Grand Prix. Hamilton then, 2.5 seconds still the gap. Lando Norris trying to close in, but Hamilton able to just find the lap time when he needs it. And this is the experience of Lewis Hamilton coming into it now. He knows how to manage these kind of situations. And in fact, it's more likely that Max Verstappen's going to be under pressure. Lando Norris is going to be under pressure from Max Verstappen over the last few laps of this Grand Prix. Verstappen going quicker again by 0.6 of a second last lap. A 130 dead from Norris. A 129.4. Hamilton crosses the line, a 129.7. That's a little bit better from Norris, a 129.2. But it's still a 129.1 from Verstappen. Could be all 3 of these drivers, Hamilton, Norris, and Verstappen, within touching distance of one another as we get to the final laps of this race. There's still 9 laps left to go here at the British Grand Prix. Silverstone has delivered an absolute spectacle once again in Formula 1. Lando Norris, 2.2 seconds. DRS is enabled once again, remember. We're just hoping and praying that Lando Norris can get within that second range of Lewis Hamilton to give us a real fight for the final couple of laps. Although Lando Norris running second place, fastest in the final stint. It's got shades of Austria, hasn't it? Lando Norris closing in once more. You can see Lewis Hamilton frustratingly within touching distance. Verstappen on the radio. Seeing signs of damage on the front left for the cars ahead, and they are on the soft compound tyre. That's the thing. A used set of soft compound tyres for both Hamilton and Norris does mean that Verstappen might just, on the hard compound tyre, have gone for it. As I was saying, I'd have gone on for the mediums. I think Oscar Piastri was spot on when Oscar Piastri said the medium compound tyre seemed to be the one. And there, 0.3 quicker once more for Verstappen. Lando Norris staying about the same distance from Hamilton, but Verstappen going quicker than both of the front two. Piastri also going quicker as well. Piastri at 129.2. Just shows what he could have done towards the end had he not had to wait an extra lap for that pit stop, Oscar Piastri. Carlos Sainz, 5th fastest at this moment in time. Nico Hülkenberg holding on to 6th. Alex Albon still trying to get past Yuki Tsunoda is the main battle inside the top 10. Here we are then. Lewis Hamilton. A 9th Silverstone win is on the cards for him. He's only 8 laps away from history in Formula 1 once more. The man who just writes his own history books. Hundreds of wins, hundreds of podiums, hundreds of pole positions. But this one might just mean that little bit more for Lewis Hamilton. It's been a good couple of years since we've seen Lewis Hamilton stand on the top step of the podium. Seems almost impossible that that would have been the case if you told somebody that in 2021. But in 2024, his final season at Mercedes, he is just 7 laps away from a historic win for the team that has given him 6 Drivers' World Championships. Max Verstappen closing in once more. Lando Norris, a 129.6, loses out of those top 3. Verstappen is the quickest. Let's see then how we can actually break this down and what's going to happen inside the top 3. Let me get the race trace for you guys. So here we are then. Let me show you this. Lewis Hamilton leading. This was where he overtook Lando Norris in the pits. You can see Lando Norris's times not really closing in on Lewis Hamilton. In fact, losing out. But Max Verstappen, the blue line there, just look at how much closer he is getting to Norris and Hamilton every single lap. Gaining and gaining and gaining and continuing to close in on those top 2. And Max Verstappen, genuinely in contention for the win. If he can dispatch Lando Norris quickly, he's still got time. 7 laps left to go. Max Verstappen 1.3 seconds off the back of Lando Norris. And to be fair, maybe Lando Norris will just repay the favour after Austria last weekend. I don't think this is going to be an easy overtake for Max Verstappen. But Max Verstappen very much in contention after looking like he was miles off of it. He's going to get into the dirty air, though, of Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton ahead as well. Current driver of the day split is Lewis Hamilton being that driver of the day. Obviously, the community tab, over on the community tab, I should say, if you click the link for my channel, I have just released your post-race reaction questions for Mr. V that I will be asking a little bit later on this afternoon. But you might want to give it 5 laps because they might just change. Lando Norris 1 second ahead of Verstappen. Verstappen agonizingly close to DRS range. 6 laps left to go here in Silverstone. Come on, Lando. Let's do it. 1.08 seconds behind, so he's not going to get DRS. Through the DRS detection zone goes Max Verstappen. And Lando Norris still is going to have second place, but Max Verstappen now within that second. 0.9 seconds behind and is closing in even more. Lando Norris going to have to use everything that he can, holding off, saving some battery, hopefully. 5 laps left. And Lando Norris is going to have to do a very solid defensive drive here. Soft compound tyres just falling off a cliff. And Oscar Piastri, a 129.0, showing what the medium tyres could have done. Lando Norris, had he gone on to the mediums, would have been the quickest driver out there. Lando Norris now 0.3 seconds. The gap to Verstappen, it feels inevitable. The Verstappen train coming through. Coming around towards the middle sector. Verstappen following through turn 9. He's going to have that DRS, though, down towards turn 15, which is where we've seen the overtaking opportunities arise for the majority of the grid today. Lando Norris is going to have to do some stellar defensive work through turn 14. DRS is going to be open for Max Verstappen again. And the DRS, with the DRS, Lando Norris peeling off to the inside of the track. It's not going to be enough because Verstappen has got the grip and goes around the outside of turn 15. Lando Norris loses out and goes down into third place after leading this Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes then 3.3 seconds ahead of Verstappen with 4 laps left to go. It's another fast lap from Verstappen. He's going to have to be about a second a lap quicker than Hamilton. I can't see that happening. He was only 0.6 faster there than Hamilton with the DRS. Hamilton then looking like it's going to be another victory for him around Silverstone. His 9th victory here. Max Verstappen, though, has taken second place. And again, it's one of those, even when Max Verstappen has a terrible weekend, just feels like he is inevitable. Is always up there every single weekend. Lando Norris now third, ahead of his teammate Oscar Piastri in fourth. Sainz and Hülkenberg running 5th and 6th. The 2 Aston Martins of Stroll and Alonso running 7th and 8th. Alex Albon has managed to make that move on Yuki Tsunoda and is ahead in 9th place. And Yuki Tsunoda down in 10th place in the final point scoring place. Logan Sargent has also moved ahead of Kevin Magnussen up into 11th as we've been watching the battle towards the top end of the grid. Kevin Magnussen 12th, Daniel Ricciardo 13th, Bottas 14th, Charles Leclerc 15th, Sergio Perez is 16th, but it's actually just come into the pits as Sergio Perez. Is that a retirement of the Red Bull car? Possibly. And Esteban Ocon 17th, Zhou Guanyu 18th place of the cars running. Then we've got George Russell down in 19th place. He retired from the Grand Prix with a technical fault. And Gasly down in 20th place. Never really started the Grand Prix. Had to peel off into the pits on the formation lap. What a finish we are on for then. Verstappen a 29.5. Hamilton a 29.6. And Hamilton just knows when he is when he's in the lead, just knows what to do, doesn't he, Lewis Hamilton? He's there. Sergio Perez moves out of the way of Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton just double lapping Sergio Perez in the Red Bull. Is an absolutely harrowing sight if you are a Mexican Formula One fan. 2 laps down Sergio Perez. Charles Leclerc also a lap down. Might have to move out of the way of Lewis Hamilton. See where Charles Leclerc is in comparison. Oh no, he's miles ahead. Is Charles Leclerc. Sergio Perez 58 seconds off the back of the Ferrari in front of him. And the final couple of laps. Lewis Hamilton's just got to keep it on the road, you would say. Soft compound tyres starting to wear, yes, but Verstappen 3 seconds off the back of him. Unlikely that that is going to change in terms of positions. If you could hit the like on the video, that would be absolutely amazing. We are trying to get one of these streams to 1,000 likes this year. There's 2,700 people in the chat. Hit that like button. Make this the most liked stream I have ever had on the channel to celebrate Lewis Hamilton's 9th victory here in Silverstone. Hamilton continuing to just show his quality. Unfortunately, Lando Norris falling 3 seconds behind Max Verstappen now. It's not the end of the world. He's obviously not going to fall back into the clutches of Oscar Piastri in 4th, but Lando Norris will be frustrated not to be within contention of winning this Grand Prix. Carlos Sainz is actually pitting for Ferrari, I think, going for the fastest lap point, because Nico Hülkenberg 27 seconds behind Carlos Sainz in 5th place. So it does feel like Carlos Sainz is going to come out and try and steal the fastest lap. Nico Hülkenberg still running in 6th. And Lance Stroll 7th, Alonso 8th. Albon picking up another 2-point finish for Williams in 9th place. And Tsunoda in 10th. Lewis Hamilton, the race leader. If you are new to the channel, if you could hit that subscribe button as well, that'd be absolutely amazing. as Lewis Hamilton is going to come around the final couple of corners and be one lap away from victory in front of his home crowd. All the talk was about George Russell on pole and whether or not Lando Norris could get the victory behind. Lewis Hamilton, though, is to never be forgotten. He starts the final lap of the Silverstone Grand Prix. He goes around turn 3 with Max Verstappen 2.5 seconds behind. Flashbacks to 2021, when these two were the top two almost every single weekend. Lando Norris in third place, 4.5 seconds off Verstappen. Oscar Piastri has just set the fastest lap on the mediums, a 128.7. Carlos Sainz will be chasing down that fastest lap point in 5th place. Nico Hülkenberg 6th, Stroll, Alonso 7th and 8th. Albon 9th, Tsunoda 10th at this point, as Lewis Hamilton is following Kevin Magnussen and Logan Sargent around. Some lapped cars in front of him and dispatch them. I'm sure he will as he comes through turn 10, 11, 12, 13. And Max Verstappen is trying his best. He's 2 seconds off the back of the Mercedes, but he just can't close the gap enough. Hamilton is going to enter the final sector of the British Grand Prix in the lead. He's done absolutely amazingly today, Lewis Hamilton. He's been right in the mix throughout the entirety of it. He's carried that Mercedes. He's put in the lap times when he's needed to. He comes around the final corner, and Lewis Hamilton, history made once again. A 9-time winner of the Silverstone Grand Prix. A winner in Mercedes once again. Max Verstappen comes around in 2nd place. Lando Norris takes 3rd. And Oscar Piastri across the line in 4th place. It's going to be a long gap before we see Carlos Sainz come across the line to take 5th. And even longer before we see Nico Hülkenberg in 6th place. But my goodness me, Hamilton, take a bow. Absolute chaos at Silverstone. And it's that man once again, Lewis Hamilton, who takes the victory here. Let's see if Carlos Sainz is going to steal the fastest lap point in this final lap for Ferrari. Does come across the line and does indeed take the fastest lap point home in 5th place. Carlos Sainz, Nico Hülkenberg as well. As much as we have to applaud Lewis Hamilton for taking the victory, Nico Hülkenberg with another 6th place finish. Goodness me. It's been a long time since we've heard the get in there, Lewis, but he's in there once again, and he's on top of the podium. And as much as Lewis Hamilton has won hundreds of Grand Prix, he's been on the podium hundreds of times, he's had pole positions over 100 times in Formula One. This one surely means more. His last race for Mercedes at Silverstone in front of his home fans. And he gets to seal a victory. It's been a long time coming for Lewis Hamilton to take a victory in Formula One once again, but he's done it here today. Absolutely unbelievable drive from Lewis Hamilton. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to disappear and get ready for the post-race reaction where I'm joined by Mr. V's Garage. So make sure you head over to the community tab, get your questions in for him and me post-race here in Silverstone. I'd love to know your thoughts over on the community tab there. If you have enjoyed this, hit the like button, subscribe to this channel if you're new. We're here live every single race weekend. A couple of weeks' time, we'll be back once again for the Hungarian Grand Prix. It has been absolutely astounding to watch this race with you guys. Thank you all so much. It's been absolutely ridiculous, the support we've got this weekend. And I will see you in a couple of hours' time. Stay tuned.